Damian Lillard, a guy who's unequivocally, unfathomably, undoubtedly the greatest trailblazer of all time. And we all know, as you can see by the title of this article, as well as the title of the video, the man has requested a trade. I mean, I feel like free agency as a whole has been very standard. You know, you have a few crazy moves, Fred getting 130, the crazy bags being thrown out for the 2020 draft class, but overall, there hasn't been anything crazy. There hasn't been anything too, what's the word I'm looking for? Anything too massive or seismic. And this is the one I think really has a chance to be like the big one. Well, that and maybe James Harden. But, you know, Damian Lillard, it was never a matter of if he was going to request a trade. I think it was always when. Because you look at how, you know, the past couple of years of went last year, had a solid start to the season, but then, you know, the Portland Trailblazers regressed to a type of mean. And that mean is, obviously, they end up with the third pick in the lottery. So, not too good. And even looking at how they were operating the year before last with Dame being out for a majority of the year, I really enjoyed that team because, I mean, you saw Anthony Simons in particular really start to take a leap into being a lead role, being able to, you know, create a shot on a level that is similar to Dame. Not saying it was one-on-one because, I mean, Damian Lillard is still one of the greatest shot creators in history, but Anthony really started to show like his prowess and really started to show his prowess, as well as really started to show what it means and the ability that a player is able to garner if they sit back for a couple of years rather than being thrown into the fire. You know, we saw Anthony Simons when he came into the league, didn't really get all that much playing time to start out, but, you know, being able to sit back, learn from a Damian Lillard, learn from a CJ McCollum, and just learn from all these great players that Portland's been able to, you know, come into their rotation. We see now Anthony Simons is a borderline all-star player. And with Dame's eventual departure, who knows, sky's the limit for that guy. But, you know, without getting too much into it, because we already know what's happening, Damian Lillard is going to be traded. Let's look at some potential packages. Yeah, okay, first one. The one that everybody's kind of not necessarily hoping for, but Dame himself has made it very obvious that he wants to go into Miami, sort of, you know, Miami or bust. And I'm in the realm of that. I think as much as Dame's done for Portland, you know, as much as he's been able to stake his claim there, I feel like as a Portland Trailblazers going forward, you know, you still got to do what's best for you as a franchise. Now, I'm not saying ship Dame off to Charlotte, you know, the Houston, any of those teams that are bottom feeders, but, you know, you gotta look at the contending teams, because as much as Damian Lillard's contract is a big, you know, asterisk in terms of not being able to get like a full level of compensation, this is a guy that's still, in my opinion, the second or third best shooter to ever play this game. So, you know, I think you still look at the packages you get, but let's just review what Miami's giving up. So in this deal, Damian Lillard and Jusuf Nurkic, I'm not gonna lie, prior to this I didn't see that part, but if you're able to get off Nurkic, that's a big blessing. But getting back to it, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., a 2026 first round pick swap, 27 first round pick, 2028 first round pick swap, and a 2029 first round pick swap. I think this trade is very mediocre. I think the big cherry on top is the fact that you're able to get off Jusuf Nurkic, because I think, you know, as much as Jusuf Nurkic had like a very, very high upside trajectory, ever since the leg snap, he has never been the same. I mean, you know, he's shown the ability to be somewhat of a bully in the post, somewhat of a secondary playmaker from the post, but, you know, no team is really winning a championship with Jusuf Nurkic being the lead man. And I think Jokic is obviously a very big asterisk when it comes to, like, because I feel like when you're building a championship team, you need some kind of anchor on the defense. And that's not to say Jokic is anywhere near the level of defense with Nurkic, because Jokic, I think, is definitely a level above. But that just goes along the fact that Nurkic, you know, if an NBA title winning team had Jusuf Nurkic as their center, the rest of the team must be like really carrying a load. Well, I mean, when you look at this, the only real assets are Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, and those potential pick swaps, which, you know, you'll see what happens when in 2028, 2029, but just for the immediate future, it's okay. No, Jaime Jaquez is a guy I'm very high on. I think he fits well with any team realistically. I mean, he's able to do a bit of everything. Shot might need a little more work in translating to the NBA level, but He's shown the ability to be a playmaker at every level, a scorer at every level, and just overall has a very mature game. We see him lose a lot of post moves, using a lot of like getting people off the dribble, jump stops, all that good stuff. And then Tyler Hero is Tyler Hero. I mean, he's the coldest white boy to ever play since Larry Bird. That's debatable, but when you look at Tyler Hero's game, I think when you apply it to this potential core that you're going to have with Portland, definitely doesn't fit. We can all say we want a big man, but what the truth is that I feel like a lot of teams and players that are available, a lot of players that are attainable, it's a lot of guards. Because I mean, you look at it, Tyler Hero, Colin Sexton, not to spoil anything, he's another player that's involved in one of these trades. It's just a lot of guard play when you look at what Portland has as their potential nucleus. Definitely don't want to mess that up. So, overall, I give this trade, not gonna lie, a C. Because, I mean, you're only really getting one first rounder and the rest of them are pick swaps. Not to say that the pick swaps aren't valuable, but, it's okay. And then Kyle Lowry is obviously a cut candidate, and, that's just there to match the salary. So I think it's an okay deal, but just looking at the potential Portland's already working with, I wouldn't necessarily want to mess it up by adding a guy like Tyler Hero that's going to demand the ball, going to demand a starting role, and just going to take up a lot of shots. I think should go to guys like Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and Scoop. Next one, the Brooklyn Nets. This one's interesting because I think Brooklyn we all kind of view as similar to the team they had in 2019. They're not going to win the playoffs. They're not going to win a championship, but they're going to be very entertaining to watch. And I mean, we saw that this year. It was a lot of the same once Kyrie and KD left. I mean, Mikal Bridges, he went from a guy that we view as like a 3-and-D post up in the corner to now it's a guy that's worth 4 first-round picks. And I'm in the party of the fact that I think of the game that he showcased when he has the ball in his hand, being able to, create in space, being able to beat people off the dribble, showcasing more. I feel like it's definitely feasible for a full season. Now, is he going to go nuts like how he did, this past season? I don't know, because I feel like the tape's going to be out. Teams are going to be able to pick up a little bit more on his tendencies, and might take a little bit of a dip, but overall, I think Mikal Bridges is stepping into a stardom role. I mean, off the top of my head, we've seen guys to where when they get off teams, when they're out of their role and able to really just start hooping. And I think Mikal Bridges is a testament to that. Not only that, you got guys like Cam Johnson. I think that the Brooklyn Nets had an underrated draft. You take a flyer on Dariq Whitehead, who could be very high upside, and you get Noah Clowney, 6'9", some decent size on him. I think he fits really well next to Nicholas Claxton. And when you look at the defensive versatility for those two, definitely exciting. But looking into the package, is Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, Daron Sharp, 2020 was first round pick from Philly, 2028 first Phoenix, 2029 first from Dallas. I'm not gonna lie, I think this trade has and looking in the eyes of how we look at rookies, where you have a ceiling and the floor, I think the ceiling is an absolute A+, and then the floor, probably about a B minus. I mean, let's just break this down piece by piece. So Ben Simmons, first overall pick, a guy that looked like he was similar to Giannis Antetokounmpo in terms of being a big guy who was able to grab the rebound, able to run the break, run point, and now definitely a bit of a fall from grace, to say the least. And I'm still in the realm of, I think Ben Simmons can be serviceable. I don't think we're going to get to the point where, Ben Simmons was this guy who was supposed to take over the league, be part of this next generation of along guys like Devin Booker, this current, the 26 to 27 year olds. You got Donovan Mitchell as well. But Ben Simmons, I think, can still be a very, very active, very solid role player in the NBA. I mean, we look to guys, Sean Livingston, for example, definitely two different kind of scales, but we look at Sean Livingston. I mean, that dude was a menace coming out of high school, coming into his first year in the league. Obviously, the injuries happened. But with Ben, I think you're looking at a guy who just needs a change of scenery. I think being in big markets, and not necessarily just by like the sheer size of the market, entertainment-wise is the word I want to use, but when you look at cities like Philadelphia and Brooklyn, and essentially New York as a whole, you're looking at states that are very, very active in their sports, and not necessarily from like just going to games and all that, but we all know how the Philly fans are. We know how ruthless New York can be. And you look at a guy like Ben Simmons, not to be sheltered towards him or anything like that, definitely makes sense for why, you know, mental health has played a big reason. And I think going to a city like Portland, it's very laid back, very chill, be a good change of pace for him. Cam Thomas, man, I think if you're able to get him to buy into being like a pure six-man scorer, this could be a home run of a pick. Because obviously you got guys, Scoot's going to be running point, Anthony's going to take up that 2-guard spot, and then Shaedon Sharp's probably going to take up your 3, depending on however Chauncey wants to run things. But Cam Thomas, we've known, is a certified bucket. I mean, we all saw what happened this season. He had like 3 back-to-back 40 pieces or whatever it was. The dude was looking like he was the best thing since sliced bread. And I think just his overall game is something that's translatable being a 6th man, you know, creating your own offense, you know, not really needing much to get going. And I think Cam Thomas would be perfect for this kind of role. And when you look at that, if you're able to secure, you know, one of your foundational role players outside of like, you know, your starters that aren't going to take too many shots away from the stars, getting a guy like Cam Thomas could be very valuable. And Daron Sharp's a guy, I think he was like leading the league in offensive rebound percentage or something, whatever that was. But, you know, he's a guy that really hasn't getting a lot of burn. And if you throw him to a team like Portland, where, you know, the front court play isn't necessarily a strong suit, could definitely like carve out some kind of lane. And obviously the 3 first-round picks I think are very valuable. 2027 for Philadelphia is one that I'm particularly looking at, as well as the 2028 from Phoenix. And like whew, you know, because we look at what's happening in Philadelphia, James Harden wants out, and if you're able to get that, as well as potentially Embiid wanting out, that could be a crazy pick. Same thing with Phoenix. I mean, as great as this, you know, little quad, whatever you want to call it, looks, 2028's definitely far enough to the point where you look at guys like KD who might slow down and, God willing, are not even retired, but that's definitely a possibility. And then the 2029 from Dallas, I think is the one where I'm like, yeah, this is a nice little throw in to sweeten it on top. But I mean, when you look at this trade, I think both teams are definitely benefiting. Definitely more than I was about to say Phoenix. Definitely more than the Miami one, where, you know, Miami gets their guy, and then Portland's just left to kind of work with whatever they were given. But here, when you look at Portland, you know, you're getting guys that have some kind of upside, have some kind of untapped potential. That's what you really want with a rebuild. You don't want the 30-year-old guy that's going to demand a lot of shots. Meanwhile, your 19 and 20-year-olds are trying to, you know, figure out the game. You got a guy like Ben Simmons who could potentially, I don't think you'd throw him some kind of mentor role, but just give him some kind of lane and avenue towards being able to recreate his career, rebuild himself. And again, being in a city like Portland, you know, I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada, but being able to go there and just embrace myself within the people there, it's a very chill city, and I think that'd be perfect for a guy like Cam Thomas. I mean, again, 6-man kind of guy, Daron Sharp, nice little upside for a potential center, as well as a 3 first-round pick. So I think when you look at this, and totally forgot, when we look at Brooklyn, man, Damian Lillard, Mikal Bridges, and a guy like Nicholas Claxton, who continues to get better alongside guys like Cam Johnson, like we mentioned, the rookies, Noah Clowney, Derek Witherspoon, Derek Whitehead, as well as who else is on their team? Come off the top of my head. Oh, drawing blanks. They just traded Joe Harris. But you get my point. I think you're left with a very solid nucleus. You got a starting lineup of probably Dame, Mikal, Cam Johnson, maybe Noah Clowney starts at the 4. I'm not really sure. But then obviously you got Nicholas Claxton holding down the paint. And man, I think when you look at the East, it's a very intriguing starting 5. It's definitely not top heavy like how we've seen with guys like the Celtics. But, you know, if that team's able to really get their stuff going, if Jock Vaughn's really able to drive that boat, could definitely see him doing something. I don't want to like crown them and say they're getting out the East, but they're doing something. Last one. Oh no, not the last one. The New York Knicks. Not gonna lie, this is the one I probably want least to happen. But before stating why, I'll get right into it. So this trade is for Damian Lillard, obviously, For RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Evan Fournier, and a 2024 first round from Detroit, which I believe is lottery protected, and a 2025 and 2027 first round pick, obviously from the Knicks. Now, not gonna lie, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because if you're the New York Knicks, you don't want your star player to, or your next, like, because obviously it looks, everything's kind of pointing towards New York gearing up for a disgruntled star, some kind of massive needle mover to get moved there. And I think if you look at how great Jalen Brunson's been, you don't want to mess with that. We've seen how Jalen Brunson can be limited at times when he plays alongside another, lead ball handler. Obviously, that's Luka. And I think giving Damian Lillard and implementing into this Knicks system, I don't know how I really like it. Because one, Jalen Brunson's now going to lose some of the effectiveness and some of like his efficiency being a lead ball handler. And then two, you're left with a backcourt of 6'1" and 6'3". And we know how that goes, especially with Dame. And then I'm just really, really not a fan of like one, small backcourts, but then two, kind of pigeonholing yourself into being forced to run this two-man lineup here, or this two-man game. And when you look at the pieces you're giving up, Emmanuel Quickly, obviously, I think is probably the most important here, or most valuable in terms of being upside and all that good stuff. But I think RJ Barrett's a guy that was able to garner a little bit of respect back when you look at this past playoffs with the Knicks. And, Julius Randle was a little bit of a no-show. I think RJ Barrett, as crazy it is to say, was almost like the best player for the Knicks, or the second best player, whatever it is. But I think, I just think overall, if you're the Knicks, you don't want to mess up your guard rotation or guard play in any way. You really want to work on that wing depth. If this is a kind of package that could get maybe a Paul George, that's something I'd be way more interested in. But for Damian Lillard to just go to the Big Apple and kind of cramp Jalen Brunson's style, not a big fan of that. All right, Utah Jazz for the last one. This one's interesting. So we got Dame for Colin Sexton, Kelly Olynyk, and a 2025 first from Minnesota, 2027 first from Minnesota, and a 2029 first from Cleveland. Now, obviously, those first round picks are from the Rudy Gobert trade, and I think one of those would obviously be from the Donovan Mitchell trade. But looking at the two pieces here, Colin Sexton, Kelly Olynyk, two guys I don't really think you see as part of your future. Definitely more trade bait. I think Kelly Olynyk's on an expiring deal, so that's definitely more of a look at the deadline. And Colin Sexton, man, it sucks to say he just had such a bad go at it. Because, this is a guy who came out of college, a menace. We've all seen the memes. We've all seen the goodness that Colin Sexton can bring to your squad. But when we look at it translating to the NBA, it hasn't necessarily been consistent. And that's not even a fact of his own fault. Or is that the right saying? What I'm saying is, first 2 years, very solid. Colin Sexton, this is a guy that beat KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, all healthy. I'm gonna probably go back to that after I finish filming this, but he's a guy that I think really has some nice upside as a sixth man. That's another thing. So, if you throw him into there, if he's able to buy into that role alongside playing behind guys like Scoot and Anthony Simons, definitely a big up. But when pride gets in the way of that, that's where it can get a little misconstrued, I think. So I think this is the one that's definitely more of similar to the Miami one, where Utah gets their guy, but when you look at Portland, it's more so, okay, I got these nickels and dimes, how do I make a quarter? It's trying to replace a piece that obviously is unreplaceable to an extent with kind of lesser pieces and trying to figure it out from there. So I think the only upside is obviously the first round picks, because the Minnesota ones are a little tempting, or a little meh about, because I'm a big fan of what they've been doing this offseason. The Cleveland one, that's the one I'm kind of iffy about too. So I think how I'd rank it, if we're going, which I'll do in a bit actually. Let's talk about for Utah's side. Obviously, this would be a great trade. You give Laurie a clear running mate, and then, man, can you imagine a backcourt of Damian Lillard and Jordan Clarkson sounds like a lot of buckets. But when you look for Utah, I think, again, very solid because you probably have a starting lineup of you got Dame, you got Jordan Clarkson, you got Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler. And off the bench, you got Keontae George, who, man, if he's able to learn off of not only Jordan Clarkson, but Damian Lillard, whew. Same with Bryce Sensabaugh. These are two guys that I think very are much in the mold of more Jordan Clarkson in terms of being just, energy guy off the bench, get you a bunch of buckets, but being able to learn like shooting, being able to pick the brains of one of the best like creators off the dribble. I wouldn't be mad at that. And then obviously you gain like more of a primary level scorer. I think Lauri Markkanen, as great as this season was, I don't think you're really moving a lot of chickens, moving a lot of needles if you got him as your main guy. Now, him being a second option, insane. So I think when you look at Utah, this is definitely a great trade. And I don't even talk about Taylor Hendricks. Man, that's a squad right there for sure. Now, if we're gonna rank these trades, I'll do it like this. The Knicks one, actually no. I think the Heat is the worst, just because Tyler Hero doesn't work alongside Scoot and Anthony Simons. And then I think the Knicks one is second, or let's see here, just off the top of my head. Actually, no. Yeah, Utah's I probably put as third, just because I think these first round picks could either be like they're either going to be top level like picks, or they're going to be like bottom half of the first round. So they're third. Second would be the Knicks, but for me it's like 4-3-2. And then I think you can tell what's the one right here. So I think, again, this deal is very... Actually, no. What am I saying? Because I'm looking at the Jalen Brunson thing, or thinking about the Jalen Brunson thing. So if I'm ranking it, actually, it'd be Miami 4, the Knicks 3, Utah 2, and then the Brooklyn Nets deal, I think, is the most intriguing in terms of when you're looking at Portland, what you've got on the table, and the avenues you can sort of go about it. I think Dame being traded for a Ben Simmons, who again isn't necessarily completely damaged goods, but just needs, I think, a really, really fresh start and a better, in a more supporting environment. Cam Thomas, we all know who he is. He's a guy I think he's more likely to buy into, I think, being the sixth man rather than a guy like Colin Sexton. Day'Ron Sharpe, definitely needs some kind of opportunity. This could be it. And those picks, I'm not gonna lie, if I'm Portland, I'm damn near accepting that like without even like giving any pushback. But when this video goes up, who knows? Maybe Dame's traded by then. We'll see what happens. I think overall we just got to remember that, or give flowers to Dame, I think, because again, this is a guy who took the Portland Trailblazers back from the depths. When you look at post Clyde Drexler, wasn't a lot to be super duper happy about. I mean, even before that, you had Sam Bowie. But looking to what's happened to Portland pre-Dame and what's going to happen post-Dame, I think you got to look back on this era as nothing but fondness, because I think, Damian Lillard's a guy who not only put butts in the seats, but really, I think, just put on for the city. I remember Dame's like rookie year, the game winners. I mean, getting some kind of praise from Kobe, rest in peace to the Mamba, like that you're one of them guys. I think that was really this amazing spark of hope that Dame really inserted into this city. And I mean, we look at the years with him and CJ. That was one of my most favorite guard duos to watch. I mean, the year was the Melo. I think just you look back on this era with a lot of fondness. It's going to be, you're in the rocking chair, out on the porch with the homies. Or I mean, if you're in Portland, I guess there's not really much of a porch. But you're somewhere looking back and thinking like, man, remember when Dame completely gamed the Oklahoma City Thunder when nobody picked them to win that series? Because I remember I had it 4-1 Oklahoma prior to the actual like ending of it. And obviously they reversed that. And I think, again, Dame is undoubtedly the greatest Trailblazer of all time. He's going to have a statue out there one day. And I think this is just, it's a natural thing that I think needed to happen. You know, if you have a franchise level player and he doesn't fit your timeline, as crazy as it is, and you never really want to let go of a piece like that, I think it was time. You know, them taking Scoot, I think, was something that really sealed the fate. And it's exciting in one way in terms of seeing how this new core is going to grow together. I'm really high on the upside of the trio of Scoot, Anthony, and Shaedon Sharpe. I think that could be a crazy, crazy trio that, when we look at the landscape of the West, it's starting to age out a bit. You know, obviously you got the Warriors who are on their last legs, the Lakers, once LeBron's out, who knows what's going to happen there. The Nuggets, not to say they're old or anything, but I think they're right in their prime. So it's what you can do these next few years that really matters to that team. And then the Kings, you know, another one to where their window's just starting to creak open a little bit. What are you going to be able to do in the next 3 or 4 years? Now, when you look at Portland, you're going to build these next few years. I mean, this next draft's not too strong, but if you're able to add something like, I don't even really know much of the prospects, but if you're able to add a top level like wing, top level 5, Khalil Ware maybe could be a guy, you know, Oregon, or you're going to Indiana, but if you're able to just add some size, you're able to continue to build around this core. You know, I think when you look at the Jeremy Grant signing, it's still going to be one of the worst contracts, but, you know, if he's able to garner some kind of, you know, consistency, some kind of like malleability to other teams to where, whoa, we could take this guy, as sucky as the contract is, he's going to make our team better. You know, when you look to Portland, that could be something. And you look to Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert, there's just, I think, a foundation that has the potential to really go places. And now it's coming at the cost of letting go of your franchise star, but it's a natural thing. And then, as we all saw on Twitter, at least I saw for sure, I'm going to pop it up right here, this could be laying the groundwork for an amazing comeback story. You never know. But I've been DJ. I'll see y'all next time.